And today, okay, there we go. All right, good afternoon and welcome to Clayton County Library System Virtual Graphic Novel Club. My name is Erica.
My name is Roland.
And today we will be covering one of Marvel's classics.
Premier Families.
Premier Family, okay. Last time we did Marvel, we did Captain America, we went to the Golden Age.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be in the Silver Age. One of the first families is Fantastic Four. Right. So we're going to jump right in first with the history. And well, we'll jump right in first with the history. So Fantastic Four was in popularity came into about November 1961 in Fantastic Four #1. Stan Lee was on the verge of walking away from making comics when he came up with the idea of heroes with hangups. He and Jack Kirby created a dysfunctional family of the Fantastic Four, and there was Dr. Richards, who was an arrogant scientist, Sue Storm, who was his reserved fiance, Sue's hot-headed teenage brother, Johnny Storm, and Reed Richards. Yes, they described him as beefy, longtime friend pilot Ben Grimm. And they would argue, fight, hold grudges against one another. On top of this, they would also save the world too. Now, there is some speculation, not speculation, but according to Jack Kirby, he created the Fantastic Four. As I was doing research for this family, there is a lot of infighting in comic book writing, and we will get to that as we talk about some of the other writers. The story begins with Reed Richards designing a spaceship for the US military to beat the Russians into space. Again, this was a time in history when we were in the space age and trying to beat the Russians. So 1961, Kennedy tells us we're going to space. When they get into orbit, the ship is hit by cosmic rays and everyone on board is altered. Sue could fade in and out of view and eventually develop the ability to project force fields, and she was called Invisible Girl. She later changed that to Invisible Woman. We will cover that. Grimm mutated into this rock-skinned powerhouse dubbed the Thing. Richards became a rubber-rimmed Mr. Fantastic, and Johnny erupted into flames and blazed through the skies as the Human Torch. This team was successful for Marvel. They moved their operations from California to New York in the Baxter Building. They faced off against villains such as the Mole Man, the Golden Age anti-hero Namor the Submariner, the alien Super Skrull, and the towering Galactus, who gained sustenance by absorbing life forces of planets. But their #1 nemesis was Dr. Doom, who was hideously scarred face, hidden behind an ominous iron mask, man in the iron mask. This mastermind, initially, he was Reed Richards' scientific colleague in college, but they eventually, they just became nemesis, and he plagued the group and engaged with Richards in intellectual battles, always with dire consequences, usually to Doom's.
He loses out in the end.
And so the series picks up. It's great for Marvel. Marvel creates other characters outside of this, but the Fantastic Four is the first family. The series continues, and the family experiences highs and lows throughout the 60s. Eventually, Sue and Reed get married. They start a family. Talk about some of their family. This did not stop some of their initial problems of their relationship because Reed is distant and he's a workaholic. Sue often feels lonely and finds friendship with another guy that is Reed's nemesis, which is Namor. Johnny and Ben develop sort of a rivalry along the way, but they eventually are just best friends, more like brothers in a sense. One of their many fights initially leads Johnny to actually find Prince Namor, the Submariner, Namor has no memory of his previous life as he's walking around New York City. He was once the Prince of Atlantis and a World War II hero. But when Johnny sparks his memory by burning his excess hair away from his face and dropping him into the ocean, Nemar's memories resurface, and he is vengeful against the surface world because when he visits his homeland of Atlantis, he finds that it lays in ruins due to pollution and the wars of man. So the Submariner becomes one of the Fantastic Four's first recurring foes, even though he had romantic feelings for Susan. By romantic, I mean constantly kidnapping Susan in order for her, literally kidnapping her to take her. Not in a sense that she ever reciprocated that love, like she always loved Reed, and she found his friendship good, but he would literally kidnap her. We frown upon that these days, so yes, Namor's threats paled in comparison to another of their nemesis, which is Victor. He was, of course, Reed's college rival, and then he turned into Dr. Doom. He has forced the team to time travel back in time numerous times through his plans. They have defeated Dr. Doom on their initial encounter with him, but he also became one of their enduring enemies. Another enemy of the Fantastic Four is the Puppet Master. He's still sort of around, but he's not as big as the other two that we mentioned. But his stepdaughter is crucial to the group, which her name is Alicia Masters, and she is used as a pawn at first to strike against the team, but however, Alicia forms a bond with the Thing, and there's a romance that slowly builds between those two. There are other outsiders who became members of the Fantastic Four. So the Fantastic Four, even though they're the first family of Marvel, they too have like a revolving membership, sort of like the Avengers, because due to the fact that they're family, things happen to family, and they experience some catastrophic events through their lives. So there are outside members such as Black Panther, the second Ant-Man, Scott Lang, have also led the Fantastic Four. The other members include Namor, Silver Surfer, She-Hulk, Moon Girl, the Devil Dinosaur. They come together. And there were Spider-Man was a brief member, Ghost Rider, Hulk, Wolverine. They had to at one point in time create a new Fantastic Four because it was believed that the original members of the team were dead. Other members include future Foundation members. We'll talk about them later. You have Alex Power, Dragon Man, Bentley 23, Artie Maddox, Leech, Tong, Turk, Mick, Kerr, Bye, and
Pretty much.
We'll talk about that too later. Reed is also a member of the Illuminati Society, and he made some questionable and morally questionable decisions when he was attempted to save Earth on multiple incursion events. Everybody in the Illuminati is kind of mysterious, so they don't really talk about what they do much, but they also, like I said, morally questionable. Reed has done numerous times. The Avengers, when the Avengers find out about his actions, they split the sort of superhero community, and Sue ends up joining S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers to hunt down her husband while secretly acting as Reed's inside woman. When Reed and Kirby left Marvel in the 1970s, the Fantastic Four saw a few changes to their storyline. Writers such as Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas, Marv Wolfman continued the stories throughout the 70s and into the 80s. They work with artists such as Rich Buckler, John Kushena, and John Romita Sr., and also one of my favorites, George Perez, who is infamous in the 1970s and 80s for revitalizing DC Comics, starting with the Teen Titans and Wonder Woman. And he recently passed away in 2022, so rest in peace, George. This period also ushered changes into Sue's character, the women's movement going on along this time. So she became Invisible Woman during this time, and they gave her more of an assertive and confident voice of the team instead of the, she was sort of a motherly figure in the 60s, but now she, and like, you know, she had her brother and everybody. She was always taking care of people. And in the 70s, she sort of asserted her powers more. She gained new powers, actually. And we also saw new villains pop up during this time, which was the Herald for Galactus, the Herald who was the Silver Surfer, and Galactus. I'm sorry, the new Herald for the Galactus is Terex the Tamer, is that him?
Terex the Tamer.
Yeah, almost sounds like a knight. like a knight on the round court of some sort. But in the 1980s, the longevity of the Fantastic Four showed, but it also showed slumping sales. So around this time, they wanted to kind of breathe new life into the team, and behind the scenes, there was some fighting going on amongst the writer and artist at the time. He had actually taken over, like they lost their artist, so he took over writing, editing, and artistry for this title. He had all three, John Byrne, and he got a new editor named Bob Budansky, and Bob and John did not get along, and John felt that Bob took all the fun out of that writing for the Fantastic Four, and John wanted to usher in the team into the modern age of the 80s, and so Sue and Reed during this time were facing challenges, situations in their marriage. She was seen as more stronger than she was before, more potent, due to her more assertive role on the team. And she was not just team mom anymore or loyal wife. The Thing left the team during this time, and he was replaced by She-Hulk. So we had another woman on the team. Once John Byrne left the series, a new series of writers and artists replaced him because he just could not write with Dansky editing him anymore. So you had Steve Englehart taking over writing, and it went into another direction, a more dramatic direction. And Sue retired and was replaced by Sharon Ventura, who was Thing's current girlfriend, and Crystal, who was from the Inhumans, also joined the team. Englehart's changes increased readership, but not for long. I think it took about, it increased readership, but it took about 6 issues before it slumped again. And so Englehart was told to bring back Sue and Reed because they had both retired. And after this, he ultimately took his name off the book in protest and walked away from the book. Sue and Reed had joined the Avengers during their time when they left the Fantastic Four. So in the 90s, you had new writer and artist Walt Simonson. Sorry, not Simonson, but Simonson. And he brought the couple back to the Fantastic Four. And because he had been writing for the Avengers, when they joined the Avengers, all he did was take the storyline that he had in the Avengers and fill in the blanks, the gaps in the Fantastic Four. So he basically went back and said, kind of like, what was going on with the Fantastic Four, and what was going on with Sue and Reed with the Avengers, and what was going on behind the scenes. And the storyline of the Fantastic Four mirrored what he wrote at the time, his time with the Avengers. And that was kind of it going into the 90s. The 90s, as we know, for Marvel was not very good. Marvel was facing bankruptcy by the mid-90s, like most comic, like DC had been bought out by Warner Brothers. So it had some life being put into it, whereas Marvel was facing bankruptcy. And a lot of the Fantastic Four, it didn't stop, but the sales never really picked back up until more recent, later, probably the 2000s when the 2 movies came out, the early incarnations of Fantastic Four movies with Jessica Alba and the guy from the Shield. I forgot his name, but he was the. But And that's sort of the Fantastic Four up until the 90s. We're not going to go any further than that because we only have an hour to talk about this and we have so much more to cover. So we're going to jump into the team.
Let's get into these team profiles. All right, first up, the head of the team, Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, who was born in Central City, California, the only son of wealthy physicist Nathaniel Richards and his wife Evelyn, a child prodigy with a particular aptitude in mathematics, physics, and mechanics. Evelyn died when Reed was 7. Reed Richards met two of the most critical individuals while working on his 5th degree later on at State University in Hedgemon, New York. He was assigned to a room with a foreign student, Victor Von Doom, a scientific genius. The imperious Von Doom, taking an immediate dislike to Richards, decided to take other quarters. Instead, Richards gained as his roommate former high school football star Benjamin J. Graham, who became Richards' closest friend. While attending State University, Richards rented living quarters at the Manhattan boarding house owned by the aunt of a young woman named Susan Storm. Reed instantly fell in love with Sue, although he soon deemed it prudent to move out because he was too distracted from his work due to his romance with Sue. 3 years before Reed Richards tested his starship, his father mysteriously disappeared. When Reed got to go to space first with an Army test ship, Richards recruited his old friend Ben Grimm, who had become a successful test pilot and astronaut, to pilot the starship named the Marvel 1. Richards was joined in California by Susan Storm, and because at this time Richards and Storm were basically dating at this time. Okay, on their adventure into space, their ship passed through a cosmic ray storm, and it was met with an unexpected level of intensity. Since the spaceship was designed to shield against ordinary radiation levels, the cabin volume was subjected to intense cosmic ray bombardment, irradiating the 4 passengers and wrought havoc on the ship's controls. Pilot Grimm was forced to abort the flight and return to Earth. Once back on Earth, they noticed that the cosmic rays had caused mutagenic changes in their bodies. Reed Richards discovered that his body had become malleable and that now he could elongate his body at will. After the Fantastic Four was formed, Reed became Mr. Fantastic. Under Richards' leadership, the Fantastic Four has become Earth's most honored team of superhuman adventurers and has saved the world from conquest or destruction many times. Richards proposed to and eventually married Susan Storm in a wedding ceremony attended by most of the world's heroes, and then they had a son named Franklin, who we will talk about later. Reed is a member of the following groups: the Future Foundation, the Initiative, the Illuminati, the Avengers, the Defenders, the Interdimensional Council of Reeds, Knights of the Atomic Round Table, and the Headbangers.
The International Council of Reeds.
Now, you know, they mirrored that in The Flash when they did that with Harrison Wells, where he started meeting all of his counterparts, and then they all came together to start fixing problems. So
that's one of the problems with this team, is there's too many interactions. But also they also had another child, which is Valeria, which we will talk to, but she's special in a sense. Okay. Next on our list is Susan Storm, aka Invisible Girl, aka Sue Richards, also known as Invisible Woman. Born Susan Storm, she had a happy childhood until her mother Mary died in a car crash. She and her brother Johnny watched their father, a celebrated surgeon, Dr. Franklin Storm, become, I'm sorry, lots of Franklins and lots of Nathans and lots of famous stories. But anywho, don't get confused, stay with us. Dr. Franklin Storm became a gambler and a drunk due to the loss of his wife, partly because he felt it was his fault. He was driving. He goes to prison for accidentally killing a loan shark in a fight. And Sue and John move in with their aunt, Mary Gay Jewel Dinkins, who ran a boarding house. This is where Sue meets a handsome, brilliant tenant named Reed Richards. And though they do not re-encounter him until his college years in California when she's pursuing an acting career. When Reed lost funding for his experimental spaceship from the Army, because that was the thing, Reed was building a ship for the Army, but The Army pulled the funding, and Reed decided to go anyway with an incomplete ship. He recruits his best friend, of course, test pilot Ben Grimm, who is reluctant to pilot the ship, but Sue questions his bravery, and Ben decides to go against his better judgment to pilot this ship. See, there's a lot of bad decisions here. But again, everything later on makes sense. Sue and her brother also join for fun. They just hop on the ship with them for fun. And the quartet successfully launches into space. But the intense cosmic rays, of course, penetrate the ship's shields and irradiates the crew, forcing them back to Earth. And upon landing, she learns that she's mutated and is now Invisible Girl, later Invisible Woman. She becomes Invisible Woman after an encounter with Psycho Man in the 70s, and he changes her powers. So before she could put out she could be invisible, she could put out a small force field. When she encounters Psycho Man, she can now not only put a force field around herself, but others around her. Like, her powers jump exponentially, and she starts calling herself Invisible Woman after this. She and Reed do have 2 children, Nathaniel and Valeria.
No, Franklin and Valeria.
I'm sorry, Franklin.
Valeria.
Again, Valeria, okay. And again, I told you there's too many Nathans and Franklins in the story. They're gonna get confused. Sue is a member of the Future Foundation. She's a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's also an Avenger. She's a member of the Lady Liberators, Friends of Miss America, the Secret Avengers. She's a member of the Secret Avengers. She was a member of Initiative. She was a member of Brides of Set and Hounds and the Headbangers. And that is Susan Storm.
All right, next up we have the impulsive younger brother of Sue Storm, Johnny Storm. After the secretive space flight with Reed, Ben, and Sue, he suddenly grew exceedingly hot and watched in great surprise as he spontaneously burst into flames. Incredibly, due to the cosmic race exposure, he didn't burn, but found he could control the flames across his body and use them in various ways. Together with the other 3 who also changed forever from the race, Storm became a member of the family of explorers and adventurers, the Fantastic Four, and gave himself the code name Human Torch in honor of the World War II hero of the same name, who could ignite plasma across his entire body to become a literal human torch and control the resulting flames to an incredible degree. While he does not feel the heat from the fire, he can project intense amounts of it or as little as he wishes, and even shut off the flames to his head or arms or legs to allow others to touch him or be able to manipulate objects without burning them. By increasing heat around himself, he can reach the nova level, an output of heat beyond measure and devastatingly destructive. He has a brotherly relationship with the Thing, Ben Grimm. Now they fight a lot, but it's due to their affection for one another. Johnny is also the serial dater of the group. His close exes are Crystal of the Inhumans and Lita, who was a Skrull. Spider-Man is another close friend due to their hero status and age. Johnny has always been a member of he's a honorary Inhuman, a member of Fantastic Four Inc., Avengers Unity Division, the Torrid Twosome Fantastic Force. He has been a Herald of Galactus. He has been a member of the Secret Avengers during Civil War. He is a member of Reed Richards' Future Foundation, a member of the Terrific Three, an ally of the Light Brigade, this team, and the Fantastic Three, whoever they are.
You know they're from like 8196 or something.
Kind of like missing somebody.
All right, next on my list is Ben Grimm, aka the Thing. Benjamin Grimm grew up on the sword sidewalks of New York, Yancey Street. He grew up to be a gruff but kind-hearted young man that escaped life with a college football scholarship. He went to Empire State and earned an eternal friendship with the genius Reed Richards and promised to pilot the starship Richards intended to design and build. Grimm took on military service after college to fulfill his dream and become a flyboy and gained experience in the astronaut program that would serve him well in the future. He went to space with Reed and the Storm siblings, getting hit with cosmic rays, and Grimm managed to bring the ship in for a crash landing back on Earth. Upon emerging from the wreckage, the crew, they were subject to incredible changes. The pilot recklessly transformed into a hulking, boulder-skinned monstrosity, which you see there on the screen, and he was quickly dubbed the Thing. And a quick note on that, Reed always felt guilty that his best friend he always tried to, that's one of the recurring themes in the Fantastic Four. He always tried to find a way to reverse. And I think he was only reversed once.
Yeah, he did. And they actually they covered that in the movie as well.
He was reversed once, and I think it was in the 80s. And
he decided he wanted to go back. That was not to go back was his choice.
Yeah, because his current girlfriend at the time was the female version of Thing. Like it's like they switched. And when she decided she didn't want her powers anymore, she gave him up, and he got his back to be with her, and it just never worked out. But anywho, he's one of the most influential individuals on the planet. He's the second strongest next to the Hulk. He has a unique physics, able to nearly lift 100 tons, withstand extreme temperatures, and survive intense bombardments of energy and explosive detonations. In his rock-like skin, he's been able to be pierced by extraterrestrial weaponry or sorcery by any means. While uncomfortable looking, it is supple and allows a wealth of movement. So he looks hard, but it's not really. The love of his life is Alicia Masters, which she captured his heart in the Fantastic Four's existence. He was attracted to her calm demeanor and ability to see people's soul, despite that's the fact that Miss Masters, she's blind. Though their relationship has faced many challenges over time, they always found each other and rekindled their romance. He recently proposed to her, and the two were wed as husband and wife. Ben has been a member of the Yancey Street Gang, of course, the United States Marine Corps, the United States Air Force, NASA, the Defenders. He's an associate, Project Pegasus, he's on the staff, the Thunder Riders, the old Olympic class wrestling federation. That was
early in the thing.
Okay. Avengers, he's a member of Avengers West Coast, the New Avengers, the Initiative, he was an instructor there. He was an ally to Les Heroes. Les Heroes de Paris.
Yeah, Paris.
He went to Paris. He was a member of the Future Foundation, Worthy, the Guardians of the Galaxy, SHIELD, Underground, the Fantastic Three, the Terrific Three, the Monster Mob, and the Symbiote Hive. And that is Ben Grimm, aka the Thing.
All right, now we're jumping away from the main core four of the Fantastic Four, and we're going to get into a few, about 2 or 3 of their other family members. First up, we have Franklin Richards, aka Powerhouse, who was first appeared in Fantastic Four Annual number 6, August of 1968. Now, Franklin Benjamin Richards is the eldest child of Sue and Reed Richards and is a mutant. Sue experienced a strange pregnancy with Franklin due to her exposure to cosmic rays in space. This endangered both her and the unborn Franklin. The rest of the Fantastic Four entered the negative zone and stole the cosmic control rod from that dimension's would-be conqueror, Annihilus, using the rod's power to reduce the pregnant Sue's internal energies. Annihilus does get his revenge on the Fantastic Four for stealing the rod's power and kidnaps baby Franklin. Annihilus then amplifies Franklin's powers with a cosmic ray gene transmuter. As such, Franklin's powers threaten to release psychic energy strong enough to kill every living creature in the solar system. With no time to act and no other options, Reed used an experimental and defective antimatter weapon that stopped the power buildup, but left Franklin comatose. Months later, a psychic assault by the robot Ultron 7 against the Avengers Inhumans, and the Fantastic Four inadvertently restored Franklin. His unconscious mind retaliated against Ultron, neutralizing the robot, and Franklin awoke with his powers dormant. Franklin had a power-free childhood until his family, including his mystical nanny, Agatha Harkness, was taken captive by Nicholas Scratch in Salem 7. This activated Franklin's mind, and he could free Agatha, New Salem's entire population, and his family from Scratch's control. Scratch later possessed Franklin, using his powers against the Fantastic Four, but the team freed him with Agatha's help. Franklin wielded them against the alien brain parasites, developing limited conscious control over his powers, which controlled Sue and others during their vacation to Lost Lake Resort. His parents had difficulty figuring out his powers and eventually tried to give him an everyday life. When Sue and Reed became pregnant again, Sue gave birth. It was considered a stillborn birth. Franklin took this loss hard and began dreaming about his little sister. He secretly uses his vast psionic powers to travel back in time and save his sister, sending her from her native reality, Earth 616, to someplace else, an alternate future, reality 99315. Now, Franklin has been a member of the Future Foundation, the old superhero group Power Pack, Generation X, and the Daydreamers. And that is Franklin Richards.
Yes, and he's a mutant. And with him sending his sister back, but she was at one point stillborn.
Actually, they found out that Franklin Richards was not really a mutant. What it was, he's not a mutant. What it is, he's affected by the cosmic powers, but remember, he has these latent psychic abilities. And because he always thought he was a mutant, he was able to change his physiology to mimic the X gene. So they found out later that he actually does not have the X gene. He is just born naturally powerful. He is not a mutation. He's born this way.
Gotcha. Okay.
Valeria
Richards is Valeria, aka Brainstorm. She first appeared in Fantastic Four number 254 in May of 1983. That's when she was conceived. She was disputed. She stillborn in number 267 in March of 1984. And she was resurrected in volume 3 of Fantastic Four number 54 in April 2002. And this is her first,
Wow, they gave her 9 months in the
literally,
storyline.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were on point with their time. So I did that tomorrow. Just when like, the next issue she's born. It was 9 months.
Okay.
Valeria Richards is the second child of Sue and Reed. Her parents being exposed to the cosmic radiation and being conceived in the negative zone caused her birth to be traumatic. She was technically born stillborn, but her brother Franklin took the loss profoundly and time traveled unconsciously by using the omniversal guardian Roma. And he secretly used his vast psionic powers to transport baby Valeria to an alternate reality. Later, after Franklin's cosmic powers depleted during a battle to save all truth, Valeria reverted to an unborn child within Sue's womb. That was shocking, probably. Sure. And Sue soon came to term, but her life was again threatened by the burst of radiations from the child within her. Her uncle, and I'm using quotations because he's not really her uncle, is Uncle Dr. Doom, saved her life with a combination of science and magic. She was born a standard human and developed a genius-like intellect like her father. There was also a little mystery there for a little while because people thought that she was.
Right. Thought her last name might have been Von Doom.
Yes. Yeah. People were like, is she a Von Doom or Richards? And it came out later that no, Sue had not cheated on Reed. That she was actually a Richards due to the fact of the, what was it? Nate.
Yeah.
We'll get to
it.
Yeah. Due to the numerous supervillains attacking the Baxter building, one of the many things that the Richards faced was child welfare services questioning the safety of Franklin and Val. After much reluctance, Reed and Sue decided to give up their children to the welfare department. However, the initial condition was that a dummy safe house was to be set up in a press conference announcing that the children would be moved. This decision to move Franklin and Valeria was rescinded after the safe house that they were placed in was reduced to a crater along with everything within a half-mile radius. And it was uncertain exactly which of the Fantastic Four's enemies carried out this attack or why. There's speculation that Reed carried out the attack to himself to allow him and Sue to keep the children, but nobody really knows. But it was enough to convince child welfare to let them keep their children. After the events of the Civil War, Valeria's intelligence took a quantum leap. It increased to a level that will match her father's, like in time. Val decided to keep her new abilities to a secret because she felt like her family dynamics would be altered for the worst if she told anybody. She also was helped by her nanny, Tabitha Denevue, who was actually a secret version of Val's own mother from another reality in the future. She came clean to her family and eventually started working with her father in his lab. And Valeria is a member of the new Fantastic Four, the Future Foundation, and the Doom's Avengers. Love to know a little bit more about them. There's Valeria.
All right. So next up, we're going to talk about the fact that Reed Richards' father disappeared on him, as we said earlier in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so now his disappearance though is going to answer a lot of questions, and it's going to bring up a lot of stuff. And for those of you that are interested in the MCU, you'll know that the Fantastic Four have to come into play once you hear Nathaniel Richards' story. Okay, so his first appearance was Fantastic Four 272 in November of '84. And supposedly his supposed death was Fantastic Four Volume 6, number 35 in September 2021. And it was just that his death was mentioned. It was never shown. Dr. Nathaniel Richards was a brilliant scientist and expert in several fields. He became very wealthy and respected in the scientific community. He met and married Evelyn. Together, they lived in Central City, California. They had a son, Reed, who, like his father before him, was a child prodigy with special aptitudes for mathematics, physics, and mechanics. Evelyn died when Reed was 7. Nathaniel, however, encouraged and guided young Reed in his scientific studies and fostered in his son an insatiable love of science, exploration, and discovery, as well as a respect for the consequences of such science. Now, Dr. Richards was a Brotherhood of the Shield member who had appointed them, and the Brotherhood of the Shield had basically appointed themselves the protectors of Earth at this time. He worked with Howard Stark, Tony Stark's father, and combated time variances. So here we get the beginning of the time variance authority that you see in the Loki TV show on Disney Plus. Basically, he went on a mission to meet Leonardo da Vinci, who was also a member of the Brotherhood. Once he met da Vinci and da Vinci's nemesis, Isaac Newton.
The real Isaac Newton, by the way.
Right.
The apple falling.
Right. So basically, he's going back in time meeting this, but this led to events that during an attack during one of his meetings, he basically came face to face with another time traveler who I think basically was destroyed, and his powers basically kind of filtered over to Nathaniel Richards.
The guy exploded.
Right.
He absorbed his powers and it literally propelled him through space. Right.
So now Nathaniel Richards has become a time traveling hero, and he has used his power to save his family many times before. Now, what we're not telling you is that because he has time traveled, he has created many different versions of himself, affected many different versions of himself. And one of these versions of himself, well, let's put it like this. I'm gonna give you the name of a few of his parallel selves that all play into, if you wanna look at it like this, they play into Moon Knight, which just played out in the MCU. It's gonna basically touch on the Loki series and what's upcoming for the MCU. So these parallel versions of Nathaniel Richards are known as Iron Lad, the Scarlet Centurion, the Pharaoh Ramatut, and Kang the Conqueror.
Yay.
So now you know who the Fantastic Four is on, basically.
It was played by Jonathan Majors, which is going to be interesting.
Right.
I think they're going to meet him in Avengers versus Kang the Conqueror.
It's probably going to be that.
That's the name of the movie.
Oh, it is? I was going to say because
it's two parts.
There's a storyline. There's a storyline in the comics, basically, when Kang comes up against the Avengers. So
yay.
I'm hoping that they stick to the storylines a little closer this time than making all those changes. But we'll see.
We'll see. All right, we're going to have some friends of the family real quick. We have here Agatha Harkness. We've mentioned her already. Agatha is a witch, and she's been throughout history. She claims to be centuries old. She's from the 17th century, and she governs the witches of Salem, Massachusetts. After a failed attempt to stand up to their persecution, Agatha's witches built their own secluded city called New Salem, high in the mountains that would eventually become the state of Colorado. Her most potent spells seem to be cognitive, communicative, analytical, or manipulative of living beings' minds through she can cast powerful transmutation spells and lend tremendous power to others. She generally does not engage or in direct magical combat due to her physical limitations of her advanced age. The sources of her magic include natural forces, extra-dimensional beings, and her innate energies. While Agatha is the most powerful witch, she allies with others that possess great power and protect and guide them in ways of magic. Two of her students included Susan Storm and Reed Richards' son, Franklin Richards, and her other student, who we've covered before on this graphic novel club, which is Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch. While Agatha is the nanny to Franklin Richards, her son, Nicholas Scratch, attacks New Salem with his 7 children, the Salem 7 that Roland mentioned earlier, Salem 7. He turns the town against his mother, and with the help of the Fantastic Four, especially Franklin, Agatha defeats him and banishes him to another dimension. Scratch returns and possesses Franklin Richards to use his powers against Agatha. Though Agatha defeats him again, his children and her grandchildren later burn her at the stake. But she's not dead for long. She becomes a pivotal individual in Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch's life.
Yep.
And that is Agatha with her black cat.
Yeah.
Who is getting her own series on Disney Plus.
Yep. All right, next up we have Miss Alicia Masters, first appearance Fantastic Four number 8, August 1962. Now, Alicia Masters' father Jacob was killed when his partner Philip Masters, the original puppet master, decided to destroy the laboratory where they worked together. Without his knowledge, Alicia and her mother, Marcia, had accompanied Jacob to the laboratory. During the explosion, Alicia was blinded, and Marcia died when she inhaled toxic gases. Feeling remorseful, Philip adopted the girl and swore at all costs to restore her vision without success. Alicia became a friend to the Fantastic Four when her father tried to kidnap Sue and have Alicia infiltrate the group as Sue. She rebelled against her father and helped the Fantastic Four. Alicia felt especially interested in the Thing, not because of his appearance, but his personality, and she became his girlfriend. She was the first human to encounter the Silver Surfer when he was on Earth. She saw his inner nobility and pain. He sympathizes with humanity through his friendship with Alicia and rebels against Galactus. The Thing becomes jealous of their friendship and does not understand the nature of the relationship. Silver Surfer left Earth to find his place in the universe at this time. Later, she was kidnapped by the Skrulls in a plot to infiltrate the Fantastic Four. The Skrull named Laya impersonated Alicia, but was to find She-Hulk instead of the Thing, as he was on Battleworld. She instead had to make do with tricking Johnny Storm into falling in love with her. She ended up falling in love and they were married. Her trickery was found later, and the real Alicia Masters was rescued from suspended animation by the Fantastic Four, unaware that any time had passed. During this time, the Fantastic Four were seemingly killed, defeating Onslaught. Alicia acted as caretaker to Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman's young son, Franklin, for a time. When the Silver Surfer returned to Earth, they began a relationship, but it did not last. Galactus returned to Earth, and the Silver Surfer had to defeat him again along with the Fantastic Four, but he felt like he lost what little humanity he had gained, and he left again. When the Baxter Building was destroyed and most of the Fantastic Four family seemed to be lost in the destruction, presumably dead, Alicia was hired by Dr. Peter Parker to construct a statue of the Richards family. In working on the sculpture, she reconnected with Ben, aka the Thing, and they began their relationship again. He proposed to her and they married when the Fantastic Four family returned to Earth.
Yeah, they weren't dead. They were,
right.
They were.
Now, Alicia Masters is the same character that's played by, what's her girl's name?
Kerry Washington.
Kerry Washington, that's right.
Stand by herself. Yes. And I think she's a more pivotal character in the second movie than most of the first movie. I just remember the characters. I remember the second movie so much because I like Silver Surfer.
Well, oh, you know what? I'm thinking about the second iteration, not the second movie. I did like the Silver Surfer movie.
Absolutely not. We don't speak of that iteration.
Fantastic Four with the square.
Nope. Nope. That right. Does not exist.
Let's move on to this gentleman here.
I'll let you cover it.
Okay. So Mr. Willy Lumpkin, his first appearance was in Little Lizzie #1, February 1949 in the Golden Age, and then he appeared again in Fantastic Four #11, November '62 of the Silver Age. Now, William Willy Lumpkin was born in Glenville, Nebraska. His grandfather, Bill Gramps Lumpkin, was a retired city mailman who delivered mail during World War II. Growing up holding to follow up in his grandfather's footsteps, he sought out a romance with Lila Brown but at the same time was friends with a guy named Charlie Boomer. Now, Willie aspired to marry Lila and move to the big city and be a mail carrier there. However, one Christmas Eve, when Willie met with Lila and Boomer to exchange gifts, he learned that they were getting married, as Lila thought that Boomer had more potential to be successful as Postmaster General of Glenville. With nothing left in Glenville, Willie left to follow his dreams in the big city. So basically, Willie became the mailman of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah. At the Baxter Building.
Basically, a little story that Willie was involved in. It was that after a certain attack at the Baxter Building, he was impaled by a piece of shrapnel, and his doctors couldn't do anything but to keep him stable, to keep it from piercing his heart. And basically, this battle, it was a battle Deadpool was in. So Deadpool fools around and tries to obtain the vibranium that from T'Challa that they're saying could save his life. The doctors are saying it's the only thing that could save his life. So I'm figuring it's something like a Tony Stark arc reactor over his heart or something, keeping the shrapnel from going in. Well, basically, T'Challa discovered that when he combined the cells taken from Deadpool's body and combined them with the vibranium to help Willy Lumpkin, he basically made Willy Lumpkin immortal. So basically, he healed him of his wound and became basically a case study for T'Challa. And basically, T'Challa wants to plan how to reverse the treatment so that people do not become immortal. So until that time, Willie will apparently live forever, and that's Willy Lumpkin. Now, Willie was played by Stan Lee. You know how Stan Lee does his little cameos? Well, in the Fantastic Four movie, his cameo was actually Willy Lumpkin.
All right. Next on the list is the Inhumans. This is their first meeting appearance is in Fantastic Four #45 in September 1965. This group is teamed up against the Fantastic Four. At first, you had a Frightful Four who came in to square off against the Fantastic Four, and a part of that group, it was Wizard, Sandman, who's from Spider-Man, the Trapster, and Medusa, who is actually, they were kind of the dark counterpart of Fantastic Four, but Medusa had no memory at the time of who she was, which she's an Inhuman. And she was not like her evil companions. And so when Gorgon, who was an Inhuman, eventually located Medusa, he attempted to reunite her with the rest of the royal family. Well, yeah, she's Queen Medusa, by the way. And Johnny quickly became infatuated with Medusa's sister, Crystal, when they met. And although Black Bolt and the remainder of the royal relatives disapproved of their burgeoning relationship, the Fantastic Four and the royal family ultimately united against the threat of Black Bolt's brother, Maximus the Mad, and in the aftermath, the Inhumans were cut off from the outside world. This is when they moved to the moon, because they at one point in time had a base on Earth, but they ended up moving to the moon, and she would leave. This would leave Johnny and Crystal separated from each other and heartbroken. But this is not the last time they see each other. They team up many, many times. But that is the Inhumans. That's Black Bolt.
The next one.
Okay. Our favorite. Oh, we're gonna do the next one. I'm gonna do the next one. Black Panther. It's the first that who's also his first appearance was in Fantastic Four, number 52 in April 1966. So the first Black character created. We will continue. King T'Challa, the Black Panther, was invited the Fantastic Four to his previously hidden nation of Wakanda. This is an elaborate test of their powers, as the Panther easily beat the team during a one-on-one encounter. T'Challa explained that he needed the Fantastic Four's help to defeat Ulysses Claw and force him out of Wakanda. During the subsequent battle, Claw used his sonic converter and transformed him into the living being of sound. Despite his newfound powers, Claw was overcome and imprisoned by the heroes. T'Challa became a friend to the Fantastic Four and considered them allies to Wakanda. He even was a member of the Fantastic Four during the time of some of the actions of their members.
Okay, so now you see right here, when they did the Black Panther movie, the first one, that was their time to introduce the Fantastic Four, because their nemesis was Ulysses Claw.
Yes, and they could have been, they'd already introduced him in Civil War.
Right.
When his father died, he could have squeezed it in between there.
Right.
And it could still be, because there's a period that we don't see between him training to be T'Challa King and him becoming Black Panther. So there could be maybe when they make the Fantastic Four movie, there could be a mention. Right. We'll see. Next on our list is the headquarters.
Yes, so the Fantastic Four have had several headquarter buildings. We're not going to go in depth with it because we're pressed for time, but the first is the original Fantastic Four, the Baxter Building. First appearance, Fantastic Four number 3, December 61. It was a 35-story building located at 42nd Street and Madison Avenue. Basically, it is living quarters, scientific research labs, weapons station, hangar for their vehicles, everything. And I believe it's an office building on the lower levels to normal people.
Yeah, I think normal people also live there too.
Oh, okay.
According to the history, and other superhero groups were headquarters there before the Fantastic Four, such as the All-Winter Squad, which consisted of Captain America during World War II.
Right. Now, it's been destroyed a couple of times and rebuilt. Right, but after it was destroyed the last time, the Baxter brothers sold the building to Walter Collins, whoever that is. Now,
doesn't really go into who that is.
Yeah. Now, so the building in the middle is one of the more iconic by sight You know the Baxter Building by name, but you know Four Freedoms Plaza by sight because of the big fours at the top, of course. Basically, this building has become also the headquarters for the Thunderbolts. And it says that the upper floors of the Four Freedoms were shunted into the negative zone during Zemo's failed scheme while he was leading the Thunderbolts. And this building itself basically received massive structural damage. So what
caused by the Thunderbolts.
Right.
Okay. I think he set off a bomb in there accident. He was doing experiments he shouldn't have been doing and set off a bomb.
So basically at this time, the Thunderbolts have to move to position at Pier 4, which was on the Hudson River. And SHIELD comes in later and uses the ruins of Four Freedoms Plaza to release Cree prisoners back to their people. All right. So in the end, basically, they end up operating out of 4 Yancey Street out of Manhattan, which is basically a building owned by Ben Gordon. And that's that.
And that's the most recent one. All right. I'm going to quickly go through these also because we've talked about these guys before. And if you haven't heard us talk about them, go back and check out some of our other previous episodes.
Tired of talking.
Tired of talking about the Avengers, but there's the Avengers. Sue, Reed, Ben, and Johnny have all been members of the Avengers at some point in time. Their first appearance was in September 1963. They are Earth's mightiest hero group since the Celestials attacked 3 years ago. They were tricked into working together by Loki, who they defeated very quickly and decided to stay a group after they defeated Loki. The only one to leave was Hulk. And around this time when Hulk left, Captain America was found and unthawed, and he took sort of he began leading the team after that because I think Iron Man walked away too. Like I said, all of the Fantastic Four are members of the Avengers and have teamed up with the team on numerous occasions. Next on our list is Future Foundations. They were first seen in Fantastic Four number 579 in July of 2010. The Future Foundations is a philanthropic group organized by Mr. Fantastic to better serve humanity's future. He has gathered the youngest, the brightest, and not for their ideas, but to mold them into a team that can come up with solutions to the world's problems. We have Zero G, which is Alex Power, Dragon Man, who evolved
Moloid's tongue.
And then you have Turk, Mick, and Core, and Deadly 23, which is a clone of the Wizard. These are the first recruits for the organization. Mr. Fantastic's father, Nathaniel Richards, also joins the team later.
Now, the Moloids are a group of people that they're underground people. I don't know if they were
We're going to
from
talk about
Mole Men.
in the Mole Men.
Yeah.
But we're not going to talk about nothing long. But
Right. Okay. So here we have the enemies of the Fantastic Four, and we're going to try to skate through those in a couple of minutes. So basically, real quick, this first one is the Mole Man. He's basically an early villain. Basically the first villain. He was a scientist who was ridiculed by his peers for poor eyesight and his sloppy physical appearance, and he basically got nicknamed the Mole. So
he's also kind of hunchback.
Right. Now, let me get to it. In 56, having heard legends regarding the land at the center of the earth, Harvey Elder, aka Mole Man, began traveling around the world to find it. Seeking to further his avenues of investigation, he attempted to join a New York City Explorers Club owned by Stanley Hathaway. Unknown to Harvey, the organization was the public front of a group known as the Monster Hunters. Unfortunately for Harvey, Hathaway told him that the legends were nothing more than the work of a crackpot and basically ejected him from the building. So later he got his revenge against the Monster Hunters and defeated them, taking their island in the Pacific. Yeah, he basically made himself the ruler of a wide empire in an underground realm he called Subterranean. Subterranean does not actually lie at the center of the earth, but instead consists of a seemingly planet-wide network of caverns lying miles beneath the Earth's surface. In this underground world, he discovered a race of semi-humanoid creatures called they were in the they were subterranean, but the Mole Man controlled them, and they were known as the Moloids. And they were distinguished from other subterranean races by their pale yellow skin color. The Mole Man also found and mastered highly advanced technological devices which had been created and abandoned by the race of deviants. Furthermore, the Mole Man discovered and learned to control a large number of non-humanoid monsters, which either may have been descendants of beings created through genetic manipulation by the deviants, or may have been uncivilized, in some cases nearly mindless, highly mutated deviants themselves. When Mole Man came to the surface world to take over, he was thwarted every time by the Fantastic Four, as he was actually their first villain they encountered after getting their superpowers, and he is basically still around the Marvel Universe trying to attack the surface world. Now, they make it a point to say that he does not rule the center of the earth, because we all know that that's the savage land, and it's another realm. Both of those comprise the center of the earth.
Yeah, it's miles away.
Right.
Next on our list is Galactus and the Silver Surfer. Galactus is what's his name?
Uatu.
Uatu the Watcher went to great lengths to hide the Earth from Galactus and his pharaoh, the Silver Surfer. But when the Fantastic Four confront the Surfer eventually finds him. They cannot prevent him from summoning Galactus to devour the world. And when we say devour, we mean literally, like, doesn't he swallow them whole on his?
Yes, he sucks all the energy out of them.
But Alicia Masters befriends the Surfer as he's recovering from an attack from the Thing, and allows him to see the good in humanity. Meanwhile, Uatu sends Johnny on a mission inside Galactus' ship to retrieve the ultimate nullifier, which is a weapon powerful enough to annihilate even the cosmic giant, Galactus himself, and also the Earth. Inspired by Alicia, the Silver Surfer turns against his master and acts in defense of the Earth. In response, Galactus banishes the Silver Surfer behind an impenetrable, I was trying to get it out, barrier that it was prevented him from returning to the stars. Galactus also agreed to leave the planet in exchange for the Nullifer's return, which he does. And Silver Surfer ends up being able to see the stars because he leaves Earth. He's on Earth for a little while. There's some jealousy between Alicia and the Thing, and he leaves, but he comes back.
Yeah, and this was the whole second Fantastic Four movie, basically.
Yes, it is. Well, yeah.
Now, I don't think they show the ultimate nullifier, which in Marvel mythos is one of the greatest weapons ever devised. Anytime they have something on a cosmic scale that cannot be handled mystically, that is a physical threat, they bring in the ultimate nullifier, which they have to go and somehow get from Galactus.
Yeah, they are. That was one of the things fanboys hated about the second movie, because they changed Galactus. Instead of him being a being,
right?
He was
that cloud,
that massive cloud,
right?
But yeah, and they changed a few things about it.
Okay. All right. Next up, we have Dr. Victor Von Doom. First appearance, Fantastic Four #5, 1962, as Dr. Doom. And he shows up again as the infamous Iron Man #1 in October 2016 as Iron Man. As you can clearly see, he ain't Iron Man. But I'm sure there was a little evilness going to it. Right.
There's a story behind it.
I mean, he's encased in armor, so how much different can you get? Okay, so Dr. Victor Von Doom is a Latvian politician who serves as the monarch and supreme leader of the Kingdom of Latveria. His mother, Cynthia, was killed in a bargain with Mephisto that went wrong. Despite his father's attempts to care for her, a noblewoman died and Werner von Doom fled with a young Victor on a cold winter's night. Victor survived the cold, but unfortunately his father did not. Doom sought to increase his knowledge of both science and magic in order to rescue his mother, whose death he blamed on Mephisto. Now, fast forward, he becomes the archenemy to Dr. Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four. He meets Reed Richards and Ben Grimm at State University in Hedgeman, New York, where he had a scholarship. They developed a dislike for each other, leading to Reed Richards committing the first prank he had ever pulled, changing Victor's last name on a trophy to Doof. That was funny. Doom becomes obsessed with developing a machine that could project the astral form of a being into other dimensions, seeing it as a way to free his mother's soul from Mephisto's clutches. Reed points out a flaw in Doom's calculations, but Doom arrogantly ignored his warnings, feeling Reed was trying to upstage him, likely due to their dislike for each other. The machine exploded, scarring Doom's face. He was soon expelled for conducting unethical experiments. From then on, he blamed Reed Richards for the destruction of his face, as well as his expulsion. He was scarred from an accident and wears an iron mask and armor to hide his true face. Now he is considered one of the most brilliant minds and scientists on the planet Earth. He is also a sorcerer with skills in magic, matching the most powerful beings in the universe, making him a potential candidate for Sorcerer Supreme. He hopes to bring order and betterment to humanity through world conquest. Unequaled in ability, ego, and willpower, he has come into conflict with both superhumans and cosmic beings alike. And that is Dr. Doom, one of my favorite enemies.
Yes. Next on the list is the Super Scroll.
Clerk.
His name is Kurt.
KL''RT, Clerk.
I love it. Anyway, his first appearance is in Fantastic Four number 18 in June 1963. Kurt was a decorated soldier in the Skrull Army before becoming a Super Skrull. He married a wealthy Skrull countess from the planet
Let's pronounce it together. Zaragazna.
Yes. They had two children. His son, Sarnag, sounds like something from Lord of the Rings,
Right.
and a daughter, Jacindia. I love it. Kurt was had duty and devotion as a soldier, and it kept him away from his family most notably when they fought in the Battle of Harbor. After a string of defeats, though, disgraced Kurt was turned away by his mate and banished from and was no longer allowed to see his son. But over the years, Kurt secretly kept up with tabs on his old life and his family. Under the rule of the Emperor George VII, Kurt was given the opportunity to become the first Super Skrull. He was endowed with the powers of the Fantastic Four and sent to Earth to conquer it after the Fantastic Four thwarted their previous invasion attempts. With powers that were stronger than his foes, the Super Skrull was more than a match for the Fantastic Four. The team leaders, Mr. Fantastic, deduced that Kurt's powers were artificial and beamed to him from the Skrull throne world. So he built a jamming device and cut the Super Skrull's power source. Powerless, Kurt was imprisoned inside a dormant volcano, but he would escape many attempts and tried to conquer Earth, and the Fantastic Four especially. He took the place of Franklin Storm, the father of the Fantastic Four's Invisible Girl and Human Torch. And at the time, Franklin was serving time in prison for vehicular manslaughter and posing as Franklin. The Super Skrull broke him out of jail and fashioned his identity as Invincible Man, using his familiar connection to the Fantastic Four to force them to hold back while he committed crimes. He was defeated again and went back into hiding, but he's always around. And that is.
So he was the Skrull's first super soldier. And see, now all of these characters that we are All of these characters that we are going
Aren't they
into.
gonna be in the second?
Yeah, well, they're showing you how they kind of flip-flopped and
In the MCU?
didn't give you everything in the everything they should have gave you in the first 3 phases.
Mhm.
They have spread it out so that this stuff is coming out in 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Yeah, because I know like with the scrolls, we get them in Captain Marvel, and then we're gonna get them in Secret Invasion, and we touched on them in
Well, Secret Invasion should be in depth because that is, but they've been around a long time before.
yes. Next on our list, I'll let you cover.
Okay, so Annihilus,
We talked about him about the.
oh yeah, we talked about Annihilus before. Annihilus, basically an interdimensional insectoid conqueror and tyrant hailing from the negative zone, which is a pocket dimension located on Earth 616. He basically took over the entire realm wielding the cosmic control rod. He is a known nihilist, obsessed with extending his own lifespan, and will destroy any being that threatens his existence. And the way that he came into conflict with the Fantastic Four was that in order to save Sue Storm in the beginning of their career, they had to invade the negative zone and steal his cosmic rod that he basically held over his people for power. So, and that's Annihilus. Now, don't get it twisted. This is one of the Fantastic Four's worst foes right here. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Doom is going after them because of, personal BS. This right here is pure evil coming after them.
He made himself known because he got really bad, still in wrong. And then he came back, and didn't he kidnap Nathan?
Yeah.
Yeah, he kidnapped Nathan. They got him back. It all worked out. And last of our list, King Namor McKenzie, aka Submariner. We covered him.
Yes, we did. That's why we're not going to go in depth.
Yes, because we covered him last summer.
Yes, let's just say that he is a he's not a fan of surface people.
Nope, he's not.
And with the Fantastic Four being surface people, he's
He's
arrogant and he's in love, or I'm not even gonna say he's in love. He likes Sue Storm and he's obsessed with her to the point that he has kidnapped her.
numerous times.
And he basically comes for her, but because of his respect for her, in the end, he actually becomes an ally. And you got to remember, he's not totally Atlantean either.
Yes, Atlanteans are blue.
Right.
He is not blue, as you can see. He's half human, half Atlantean. Now, you want to say who comes first? Yeah, or Aquaman? He does.
Yeah.
So everything of Aquaman's is actually Namor. Namor was the first hero of Timely Comics,
Right.
which turned into Marvel Comics. It was not Captain America, it was Namor, the Prince.
Right.
And we will see him soon in Wakanda Forever because he is their nemesis, their antagonist. Because again, he does not like the surface world. And we all know that Wakanda there's a storyline with him attacking Wakanda.
Right.
It was over a misunderstanding.
Pretty much.
Yes.
But this is how they're going to bring him into the MCU. He's going to come in off.
Now they have changed him instead of being more of the Atlantis we've known. They're more of a South American.
Yeah, their culture does seem to resemble.
Yes,
like the Aztec
Mayan culture. So that is what we have for today. If you would like to check out what we need ourselves, our extensive research, a lot of research this time, guys. Thank you for bearing with us. It's gone over a little over an hour, but we covered the first family of Marvel and we left a lot of stuff out. But if you're interested in researching it yourself, we have the links here. And you can also contact us anytime. Get that information at the end of this. But let's not forget that Comics Plus is still here. If you want to explore the Fantastic Four a little bit more, please check out Comics Plus. You can borrow thousands of digital comics, graphic novels, and manuals from the Clayton County Library System with your library card, and you must have a Clayton County Library card. There are no holds or waiting lists, and you get offline access on your tablet, computer, and smartphone. So please sign up today. You can go to our website at claytonpl.org and go under learning and research and click on the Comics Plus icon to get access. It does require to click that. And in 2 weeks, we will be discussing the series DC's Injustice, based on the video game Injustice, but they made it into a series because it was so popular. That will be on August 16th at 22 at 4 p.m. So here's our email address. If there's something you want to see us cover, please don't hesitate to reach out. And there's the YouTube channel where you can check out all of our past graphic novel clubs. You want to check out Neymar? It was last summer, 2021. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.